HermitCraft, Season 10, live reading of Moby Dick. Here we go, here we go, here we go, HermitCraft. Here we go, here we go, here we go, HermitCraft. Let's go, HermitCraft. Let's go. Da, da. Alrighty, we are going to pull up Project Gutenberg's Moby Dick, or the whale. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the what we're reading link up. Have we repaired all our gear? Yep, it looks like Asuma is currently AFKing in such a way that means we cannot use this machine to grab more books. So we are going to leave that behind, return to our base area, and do some mining while we read Moby Dick, or The Whale by Herman Melville. I see some familiar names in the chat. Welcome, Aris, Arthur, Javi, Goofy Red, Barry Bana, Ken Dreadful, 10 FPS Puzzle 10. Glad you could join us. Let's lay our heads down and dream. Where are we? Oh, we're in Falsa's base. That's a great place to be at night. Okay. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and pull up the YouTube chat as well, and we also are going to need our Discord chat here. Okay. Pop out the chat. Here we go. There's our pop-out chat. We're going to edit video on the YouTube side so that the live reactions are off and slow mode matches Twitch. 10 seconds on each. I should make a sand and diamond currency conversion shop. That doesn't really feel like my speed. I feel like whoever has the sand permit should do that. Somebody who has a sand permit should turn diamonds into sand. Because that's basically what that looks like. Welcome, Andy. I'm glad you find Moby Dick sleepy. He's a very sleepy whale. Okay. Let's see if we can go up here. How are we on rockets? I kind of think we keep running out of rockets. Let's go buy some more from Cobb while we're over here. Enjoy your boat race, Taco Squirrel, to you. If you haven't seen it, we've got our little new law firm there. That episode's going to go out sometime early next week. Very excited about that. Don't have an exact... There's a bridge now! Look at this bridge! Oh, that's exciting. It's like Skiz and I are really going to be in the center of things. Okay, yeah, so what were we going to do? Why is everything so quiet? Okay. I feel like normally I should hear stuff. It's probably because I usually open the streams with music, but we can't do that on the Moby Dick streams because of the VOD problems. Okay. So let's quickly just buy some more fireworks, and then we'll be on our way back home to Hermit Holmdel, or the community area that I'm working on this season in lieu of a personal base. Lady DW says, loving the law offices. Thank you, thank you. Can't quite see them from here, but... Okay. 11 Lou says, hey Joe, can't sleep. It's the middle of the night here. Maybe this will help. I mean, maybe. Depends how exciting whale stories are to you, because that's what we got. We got whale stories tonight here on the HermitCraft server. Let's go ahead and come on through over here. La da 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 da. Okay, what do we have to do before we start the stream? Let's put these extra fireworks in there so we have them for later. Traditionally, we open the stream by posting the tipping link. We are currently 17 away from our next face camera expansion milestone. Okay. So, let's, we got the Moby Dick Window open. We got the OBS window there. This is a particularly challenging chapter in a different way than in some of the other chapters, because this one has like 25 different people or groups of people sharing their thoughts. It's a very... Hostile creature sounds on. Well, we have some chests in our inventory. Huh. So this is already going well. Fine. So, anyway, I hope you like live streams. Welcome to the live stream. We got HermitCraft. A lot of things are going wrong. Forward, starboard, aft. So yeah, I was just gonna explain why this was a hard chapter to read, but like... Then the creeper decided to make it harder to read. All of the careful organization that I did on these chests has been undermined. It's fine. Whatever. It's fine. Okay. So, yeah. I'm down here in the lower left, if you need me. Boy. Probably should get some more lights in here. So that doesn't happen again. I'm guessing he came up the water thing there. I don't have time to light all of this. Or maybe he fell from up there. I don't know. Maybe he spawned down here. Okay. Okay. None of my equipment's in order. On my hotbar for muscle memory either. Okay. We have the what we're reading link pinned. We didn't even get that pinned before we... okay. I was like, I'm just going to jump in because that really threw me. This makes Triforce, we're doing poorly. We just had my underground beacon storage blown up by a creeper, and now it's all unorganized. Now we need to get more chests. It's fine. Okay. So anyway, I was going to explain why this chapter is one of the hardest chapters in the book to read alone. And mention that some people reached out to me about reading it with me, but they're unavailable tonight, on the night that we're up for it anyway. So we're going to do this, and I'm not even going to explain why it's going to be bad. It's just going to be terrible, and you're going to have to just, you know, if you're watching this in the VOD, you're going to be like, oh, this is why Joe doesn't like VODs, because there's records of nightmares like this. But what kind of nightmare? Is it an early nightmare? Is it a late nightmare? No. Chapter 40. Midnight. Forecastle. Harpooneers and sailors. Foresail rises and discovers the watch lounging, leaning, and lying in various attitudes, all singing in chorus. Farewell, and adieu to you, Spanish ladies. Farewell, and adieu to you, ladies of Spain. Our captains commanded. First Nantucket sailor. Oh, boys, don't be sentimental. It's bad for the digestion. Take a tonic and follow me. Our captain stood upon the deck, a spyglass in his hand, a viewing of those gallant whales that blew at every strand. Oh, your tubs and your boats, my boys, and by your braces stand. And we'll have one of those fine whales, hand, boys, over hand. So be cheery, my lads, may your hearts never fail, while the bold harpooner is striking the whale. 8 bells there, forward. Avast, the chorus, 8 bells there. Do you hear, bellboy? Strike the bell, 8, thou pip, thou, and let me call the watch. I've the sort of mouth for that, the hogshead mouth. So, starbolines ahoy, 8 bells there down below, tumble up. Grand snoozing tonight, matey, fat night, for that I mark this in our old Mogul's wine. It is quite as deadening to some as filliping to others. We sing, they sleep. I lie down there like the ground tier butts. Adam again, there, take this copper pump and hail 'em all through it. Tell 'em to avast, dreaming of their lasses. Tell 'em it's the resurrection. They may kiss their last and come to judgment. That's the way, that's it. Thy throat ain't spoiled with eaten Amsterdam butter. Hist, boys, let's have a jig or two before we ride to anchor in Blanket Bay. What say ye? There comes the other watch. Stand by, all legs. Pip, little Pip, hurrah with your tambourine. Don't know where it is. Beat thy belly then and wag thy ears. Jig it, men, I say. Merry's the word, hurrah, dear me. Form now, Indian file, and gallop into the double shuffle. Throw yourselves, legs, legs. I don't like your floor, matey. It's too springy for my taste. I'm used to ice floors. I'm sorry to throw cold water on the subject, but excuse me. Where's your gals? Who but a fool would take his left hand by his right and say to himself, how do you do? Partners! I must have partners. Aye, girls in the green. Then I'll hop with you. Turn, grasshopper. Well, well, you sulkies, there's plenty more of us. Ho corn when you may, say I. All legs go to harvest soon. Ah, here comes the music. Now for it. The Azore sailor ascending and pitching the tambourine up the scuttle. Here you are, Pip, and there's the windlass bits up you mount. Now, boys. The half of them dance to the tambourine. Some go below. Some sleep or lie among the coils of riggins. Oaths aplenty. The Azore sailor dancing. Go to it, Pip. Bang it, bellboy. Rig it, dig it, stig it, quig it, bellboy. Make fireflies. Break the jinglers. Jinglers, you say. There goes another. Dropped off. I pound it so. Rattle thy teeth then, and pound away. Make a pagoda of thyself. Merry mad, hold up thy hoop, Pip, till I jump through it. Split jibs, tear yourselves. Tashtego, quietly smoking, observes. That's a white man. He calls that fun. I save my sweat. The old Manx sailor says, oh, I wonder whether those jolly lads bethink of them, what they were dancing over. I'll dance over your grave, I will. That's the bitterest threat of you, night woman. Beat headwinds and round corners. Oh, Christ. So think of the green navies and the green-skulled crews. Well, well, but like the whole world's a ball, as your scullers have it, and so 'tis right to make one ballroom of it. Dance on, my lads, while you're young. I was once. Spell, oh, whoa, this is worse than pulling after whales in a calm. Give us a whiff, Tash. They cease dancing and gather in clusters. Meantime, the scar dances, darkens, the night rises, the wind rises. Bye, Brahma boys. It'll be douse sail soon. The sky-born high-tide Ganges turn to wind. Thou showest thy brow, Siva. It's the waves. The snow-caps turn to jig now. They'll shake the tassels soon. Now would all the waves were women, then I'd go drown and chase them evermore. There's naught so sweet on earth, heaven may not match it, as those swift glances of warm, wild bosoms on the dance, when the over-arboring arms hide such rape-bursting grapes. Reclining, the Sicilian sailor observes, tell me not of it. Hark, ye, lad, fleet interlacings of the limbs, lithe swayings, coyings, flutterings, lip, hot, hip, all grace, unceasing, touch and go, not taste, observe ye. Else come to satiety. Hey, pagan. The Tahitian sailor responds, Hail, holy nakedness of our dancing girls, the Hiva Hiva. Ah, low veiled, high palm Tahiti. I shall rest me on thy mat, but the soft soil has slid. I saw thee woven in the wood, my mat, green the first, day I bought ye thence, now worn and wilted quite. Ah me, not thou nor I can bear the change. How then, if so be transplanted to yon sky? Hear I the roaring streams from Prohetes' peak of spears, when they leap down the crags and drown the villages. The blast, up, spine, and meet it! He leaps to his feet. The Portuguese sailor comments, how the sea rolls swashing against the side. Stand by for reefing hearties. The winds are just crossing swords. Pell-mell they'll go, lunging presently. The Danish sailor comments, crack, crack, old ship. So long as thou crackest, thou holdest. Well done. The mate there holds ye to it stiffly. He's no more afraid than the Isle fort at Kattegat, put there to fight the Baltic with storm-lashed guns, on which the sea salt cakes. He has his orders. Mind ye that? I heard old Ahab tell him he must always kill a squall, something, as they burst a waterspout with a pistol. Fire your ship right into it.
Blot, that's a old man's a grand old cove. Where lies to help as well. Aye, aye. How the 3 pines shake. Pines are the hardest sort of tree to live when shifted to any other soil, and here is none but the captain's cursed clay. Steady, helmsman, steady. This is the sort of weather and a brave heart snap ashore and kill whole split at sea. Our captain has his birthmark. Look yonder, boys. There's another in the sky. Lord, you see. Oh, look. You see all else pitch black. Dagu comments, what of that? Who's afraid of black's afraid of me. I'm quartered of it. The Spanish sailor, as an aside, comments, he wants to bully, eh? The old grudge makes me touchy. I harpooneer thy race. Oh, jeez. This is super racist. Okay, so we're not going to read that. And then he says, no offense. And Dagu replies grimly, none. And then are we about to see somebody get speared with Dagu's harpoon? Because, like, what a... Boy, don't do that. Don't say the things that I wasn't going to say there, because that's... This is a really hard chapter, you guys, and this Spanish sailor being super racist to Dagu is not making it easier. A sailor from St. Iago's says, that Spaniard's mad or drunk. But that can't be, or else in one case our Mogul's fire waters are somewhat long in working. What's that I saw? Lightning? Yes. No, Dagu showing his teeth. Dagu springing. Swallow thine, mannequin, white skin, white liver. Spanish sailor. Knife thee heartily, big frame, small spirit. All. A row, a row, a row. Tashtego with a whiff. A row and a low and a row aloft. Gods and men, both brawlers, humph. The Belfast sailor. A row, a row. The Virgin by blast, a row, plunge in with ye. The English sailor comments. Fair play, snatch the Spaniard's knife. A ring, a ring. The old Manx sailor says, He formed there as a ring of rising. Hear that ring? Cain struck Abel. Sweet work, right work. Now I am good. Mashed out the ring.
The mate's voice from the quarterdeck.
Hands by the halyards and to top gallant sails. Stand by to reef top sails.
All.
The squall! The squall! The squall! The squall! Jump, my jollies!
They scatter. Pip, shrinking under the windlass.
Jollies. Lord help such jollies. Crish, crash, there goes the jibstay. Blang, wang, God. Duck lower, Pip, here comes the royal yard. It's worse than being in the world woods the last day of the year. Who'd go climbing after chestnuts now, but there they go, all cursing. And here I don't. Fine prospects to 'em. They're on the road to heaven. Hold on hard. Jiminy, what a squall. But those chaps there are worse yet. They are your white squalls, they. White squalls, white whale, sure, sure. Here have I heard all their chat just now, and the white whale, sure, sure. But spoken of once, and only this evening, it makes me jingle all over like my tambourine. That anaconda of an old man swore 'em in to hunt 'em. Oh, thou big white god aloft there, somewhere in yon darkness, have mercy on this small boy down here. Preserve him from all men that have no bowels to feel fear.
Okay, so that was chapter 40 of Moby Dick. We got through that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this was one originally when I was trying to schedule all this out. I was trying to have this hit on a week where we could have a bunch of call-in guests to do different voices. That did not work out. But whatever, it's fine. We're done. Moving on. Just as a reminder, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Any tips that roll in during the reading might not be immediately read aloud. That is wildly off topic, the Twitchy Crafter. I don't know if you heard, but we're about to read chapter 41 of the Moby Dick. I, Ishmael, was one of that crew. My shouts had gone up with the rest, my oath had been welded with theirs, and stronger I shouted, and more did I hammer and clinch my oath. Because of the dread in my soul. A wild, mystical, sympathetical feeling was in me. Ahab's quenchless feud seemed mine. With greedy ears, I learned the history of that murderous monster against whom I and all others had taken our oaths of violence and revenge. For some time past, though at intervals only, the unaccompanied, secluded white whale had haunted those uncivilized seas most frequented by sperm whale fishermen. But not all of them knew of his existence. Only a few of them, comparatively, had knowingly seen him, while the number who as yet had actually and knowingly given battle to him was small indeed, for, owing to the large number of whale cruisers, the disorderly way they were sprinkled over the entire watery circumference, many of them adventurously pushing their quest along solitary latitudes, so as seldom or never, for a whole 12-month or more on a stretch, to encounter a single news-telling sail of any sort, the inordinate length of each separate voyage, the irregularity of the times of sailing from home, all these, with other circumstances, direct and indirect, long obstructed the spread through the whole worldwide whaling fleet, of the special individualizing tidings concerning Moby Dick. It was hardly to be doubted that several vessels reported to have encountered at such time, or such a time, or on such and such a meridian, a sperm whale of uncommon magnitude and malignity, which whale, after doing a great mischief to his assailants, had completely escaped them. To some minds, it was not an unfair presumption, I say, that the whale in question must have been no other than Moby Dick. Yet, as of late, the sperm whale fishery had been marked by various and not unfrequent instances of great ferocity, cunning, and malice in the monster attacked. Therefore, it was that those who by accident ignorantly gave battle to Moby Dick, such hunters, perhaps, for the most part, were content to ascribe the peculiar terror he bred, more, as it were, to the perils of the sperm whale fishery at large, than to the individual cause. In that way, mostly, the disastrous encounter between Ahab and the whale had hitherto been popularly regarded. And as for those who, previously hearing of the white whale, by chance caught sight of him, in the beginning of the thing they had every one of them, almost, as boldly and fearlessly lowered for him, as for any other whale of that species. But at length such calamities did ensue in those assaults, not restricted to sprained ankles and wrists, broken limbs, or devouring amputations, but fatal to the last degree of fatality. Those repeated disastrous repulses, all accumulating and piling their terrors upon Moby Dick, those things had gone far to shake the fortitude of many brave hunters. To whom the story of the white whale had eventually come. Nor did wild rumors of all sorts fail to exaggerate and still the more horrify the true histories of those deadly encounters. For not only do fabulous rumors grow naturally out of the very body of all surprising, terrible events, as the smitten tree gives birth to its fungi, but in maritime life, far more than that in that of terra firma, wild rumors abound, wherever there is any adequate reality for them to cling to. And as the sea surpasses the land in this matter, so the whale fishery surpasses every other sort of maritime life in the wonderfulness and fearfulness of the rumors which sometimes circulate there. For not only are whalemen as a body unexempt from that ignorance and superstitiousness hereditary to all sailors, but of all sailors, they are by all odds and most directly brought into contact with whatever is appallingly astonishing in the sea. Face to face, they not only eye its greatest marvels, but hand to jaw give battle to them. Alone, in such remotest waters, what though you sailed 1,000 miles and passed 1,000 shores, you would not come to any chiseled hearthstone, or aught any hospitable beneath that part of the sun, in such latitudes and longitudes, pursuing to such a calling as he does. The whaleman is wrapped by influences, all tending to make his fancy pregnant with many a mighty birth. No wonder, then, that ever-gathering volume from the mere transit over the widest watery spaces The outblown rumors of the white whale did, in the end, incorporate with themselves all manner of morbid hints. I have completely lost where I was. Okay, well, it's going to take me a second to find where I was. Sorry, this is a really big chapter. But in the meantime, Elodie, thank you for tipping 30. The 17 gets us one face camera expansion milestone, 27, and another 3 gets us 7 away from the next one. Thank you very much to Elodie. So let's go ahead and take advantage of this opportunity for me to figure out where I am by expanding Joe. Do. Okay, I was on something about hints. Let me see. I have no idea where I was. I was definitely reading this book. Oh my gosh. I'm worried that lack of sleep is catching up to me. Hold on. Okay. Or, oh gosh. Okay, maybe I scrolled down too far when I scrolled. Did I? Okay, I found it. Okay, cool. In the meantime, we got a tip rolling in from Kendra for 7, who says expand. Thank you so much, Kendra. Let's go ahead and do that now. Is it getting dark outside? I don't know. Let's find out in a second. Expand Joe. Do. Okay, we're going to close that. Okay, it's not quite dark in Minecraft yet. Okay, I know I found where we were. No wonder, then, that ever-gathering volume from the mere transit over the widest watery spaces, the outblown rumors of the white whale did in the end incorporate with themselves all manner of morbid hints and half-formed fetal suggestions of supernatural agencies, which eventually invested Moby Dick with new terrors unborrowed from anything that visibly appears. So that in many cases, such a panic did he finally strike, that few who, by his rumors at least, had heard of the white whale, few of those hunters were willing to encounter the perils of his jaw. But then, there were still other and more vital practical influences at work. Not even at the present day has the original prestige of the sperm whale, as fearfully distinguished from all other species of the Leviathan, died out in the minds of the whalemen as a body. There are those this day among them who, though intelligent and courageous enough in offering battle to the Greenland or right whale, would perhaps, either from professional inexperience or incompetency or timidity, decline a contest with the sperm whale. At any rate, there are plenty of whalemen, especially among those whaling nations not sailing under the American flag, who have never hostilely encountered the sperm whale, but whose sole knowledge of the Leviathan is restricted to ignoble monster, primitively pursued in the north. Seated out on their hatches, these men will hearken with a childish, fireside interest and awe to the wild, strange tales of southern whaling. Nor is the preeminent tremendousness of the great sperm whale anywhere more feelingly comprehended than on board of those prows which stem him. And, as if the now tested reality of his might had in former legendary times thrown its shadow before it, we find some book naturalists, a Lawson and Provolone, declaring the sperm whale not only to be a consternation to every other creature in the sea, but also to be so incredibly ferocious as continually to be athirst for human blood. Not even down to so late a time as Cuvier's were these or almost similar impressions effaced. For in his natural history, the Baron himself affirms that at sight of the sperm whale, all fish, sharks included, are struck with the most lively terrors. And often, in the precipitancy of their flight, dash themselves against the rocks with such violence as to cause instantaneous death. And, however the general experiences in the fishery may amend such reports as these, yet in their full terribleness, even to the bloodthirsty item of Povelson, the superstitious belief in them is, in some vicissitudes of their vocation, revived in the minds of the hunters. So that, overawed by the rumors and portents concerning him, not a few of the fishermen recalled, in reference to Moby Dick, the earlier days of the sperm whale fishery, when it was oftentimes hard to induce long-practiced right whalemen to embark in the perils of this new and daring warfare. Such men protesting that, although other leviathans might be hopefully pursued, yet to chase and point lance at such an apparition as the sperm whale was not for mortal man. That to attempt it would be inevitably to be torn into a quick eternity. On this head, there are some remarkable documents that may be consulted. Nevertheless, some there were who, even in the face of these things, were ready to give chase to Moby Dick, and a still greater number who, chancing only to hear of him distantly and vaguely, without specific details of any certain calamity, and without superstitious accompaniments, were sufficiently hardy not to flee from the battle, if offered. One of the wild suggestions referred to, as at last coming to be linked with the white whale in the minds of the superstitiously inclined, was the unearthly conceit that Moby Dick was ubiquitous, that he actually had been encountered in opposite latitudes at one and the same instance of time. Nor, credulous as such minds must have been, was this conceit altogether without some faint show of superstitious probability. For as the secrets of the currents in the seas have never been divulged, even to the most erudite research, so the hidden ways of the sperm whale, when beneath the surface, remain, in great part, unaccountable to his pursuers, and from time to time have originated the most curious and contradictory speculations around them, especially concerning the mystic modes whereby, after sounding to a great depth, he transports himself with such vast swiftness to the most widely distant points. It is a thing well known to both American and English whale ships, and as well a thing placed upon authoritative record years ago by Scoresby, that some whales have been captured far north in the Pacific, whose bodies have been found, the barbs of harpoons darted in the Greenland seas. nor is it to be gainsaid that in some of these instances it has been declared that the interval between the two assaults could not have exceeded very many days. Hence, by inference, it has been believed by some whalemen that the Northwest Passage, so long a problem to man, was never a problem to the whale. So that here, in the real living experience of living men, the prodigies related in old times of the inland Strelo Mountains in Portugal, near whose top is said to be a lake in which the wrecks of ships floated up to the surface, and that still more wonderful story of Arethusa fountain near Syracuse, whose waters were believed to have come from the Holy Land by an underground passage. These fabulous narrations are almost fully equaled by the realities of the whalemen. Forced into familiarity, then, with such prodigies as these, and knowing that after repeated intrepid assaults the white whale has escaped alive, it cannot be much matter of surprise that some whalemen should go still further in their superstitions, declaring Moby Dick not only ubiquitous, but immortal. For immortality is ubiquity in time. That though grooves of spears should be planted in his flanks, he would still swim away unharmed, or if indeed he should ever be made to spout thick blood, such a sight would be but a ghastly deception. For again, in unensanguined billows, hundreds of leagues away, his unsullied jet would once more be seen. But even stripped of these supernatural surmisings, there was enough in the earthly make and incontestable character of the monster to strike the imagination with an unwonted power. For it was not so much his uncommon bulk that so much distinguished him from other sperm whales, but, as elsewhere was thrown out, a peculiar snow-white wrinkled forehead, and a high pyramidical white hump. These were his prominent features, the tokens whereby, even in the limitless uncharted seas, he revealed his identity at a long distance to those who knew him. The rest of his body was so streaked and spotted and marbled with the same shrouded hue that in the end he had gained his distinctive appellation of the white whale, a name indeed justified by his vivid accent when seen gliding at high noon upon the dark blue sea, leaving a Milky Way wake of creamy foam, all spangled with golden gleamings. Nor was it in his unwonted magnitude, nor his remarkable hue, nor yet his deformed lower jaw, that so much invested the whale with natural terror as that unexampled, intelligent malignity, which, according to specific accounts, he had over and over again evinced in his assaults. More than all, his treacherous retreats struck more of dismay than perhaps aught else. Dang it. For when swimming before his exulting pursuers, with every apparent symptom of alarm, he had several times been known to turn about suddenly, and, bearing down upon them, either stave their boat to splinters, or drive them back in consternation to their ship. Already, several fatalities had attended to his chase. But, though similar disasters, however little bruited ashore, were by no means unusual in the fishery, Yet, in most instances, what seemed the white whale's infernal afterthought of ferocity, that every dismembering or death he caused was not wholly regarded as having been afflicted by an unintelligent agent. Judge, then, to what pitches of inflamed, distracted fury the minds of his more desperate hunters were impelled, when among the chips of chewed boats and the sinking limbs of torn comrades, they swam out of the white curds of the whale's direful wrath into the serene, exasperating sunlight that smiled on, as if at a birth or a bridal. His 3 boats stove around him, and oars and men whirling in their eddies. One captain, seizing the line knife from his broken prow, had dashed at the whale as an Arkansas duelist at his foe, blindly seeking with a 6-inch blade to reach the fathom-deep life of the whale. That captain was Ahab. And then it was that, suddenly sweeping his sickle-shaped lower jaw beneath him, Moby Dick had reaped away Ahab's leg, as a mower a blade of grass in the field. No turbaned Turk, no hired Venetian or Malay could have smote him with more seeming malice. Small reason was there to doubt, then, that ever since that almost fatal encounter, Ahab had cherished a wild vindictiveness against the whale. All the more fell for that in his frantic morbidness, as he at last came to identify with him not only all his bodily woes, but all his intellectual and spiritual exasperations. The white whale swam before him as the monomaniac incarnation of all those malicious agencies which some men feel eating in them, till they are left living with half a heart and half a lung. That intangible malignity which has been from the beginning, to whose dominion even the modern Christians ascribe one half the world's, which the ancient Ophites of the East referenced in their statue devil. Ahab did not fall down and worship it like them, but deliriously transferring its idea to the abhorred white whale, he pitted himself, all mutilated, against it. All that most maddens and torments, all that stirs up the lees of things, all truth with malice in it, all that cracks the sinews and cakes the brain, all the subtle demonisms of life and thought, all evil, to crazy Ahab, were visibly personified and made practically assailable in Moby Dick. He piled upon the white whale's hump the sum of all the general rage and hate felt by his whole race from Adam down. And then, as if his chest had been a mortar, he burst his hot heart's shell upon it. It is not probable that this monomania took in him. It is not probable that this monomania in him took its instant rise at the precise time of his bodily dismemberment. Then, in darting at the monster, knife in hand, he had but given loose to a sudden, passionate, corporal animosity. And when he received the stroke that tore him, he probably but felt the agonizing body in laceration, but nothing more. Yet when, by this collision, forced to turn toward home, and for long months of days and weeks, Ahab and anguish laid stretched together in one hammock, rounding in midwinter that dreary, howling Patagonian cape, then it was that his torn body and gashed soul bled into one another, and so interfusing, made him mad. That it was only then, on the homeward voyage after the encounter, that the final monomania seized him, seems all but certain from the fact that, at intervals during the passage, he was a raving lunatic, and though unlimbed of a leg, yet such vital strength yet lurked in his Egyptian chest, and was moreover intensified by his delirium, that his mates were forced to lace him fast. Even there, as he sailed, raving in his hammock. In a straitjacket he swung to the mad rockings of the gales, and when running into more sufferable latitudes, the ship, with mid-stun sails spread, floated across the tranquil tropics, and to all appearances the old man's delirium seemed left behind him with the Cape Horn swells, and he came forth from his dark den into... Sorry, I gotta write back to Pearl. I cannot write... Sorry. Okay. Yeah, Ahab origin story. Any tips roll in while we were doing that? No. I'll post the link again. I'm going to have another sip of my drink. This is a really long chapter. We are maybe barely past halfway, almost 2/3 through. Not quite. Oh my gosh. Long chapter. Okay. Let me blow my nose too. And when running into more sufferable latitudes, the ship, with mid-stun sails spread, floated across the tranquil tropics, and to all appearances, the old man's delirium seemed left behind him with the Cape Horn swells, and he came forth from his dark den to the blessed light and air. Even then, when he bore that firm, collected front, however pale, and issued his calm orders once again, and his mates thanked God that the direful madness was now gone. Even then, Ahab, in his hidden self, raved on. Human madness is oftentimes a cunning and most feline thing. When you think it fled, it may have but become transfigured into some still subtler form. Ahab's full lunacy subsided not, but deepeningly contracted, like the unabated Hudson, when the noble Northman flows narrowly, but unfathomably, through the Highland Gorge. But, as in his narrow-flowing monomania, not one jot of Ahab's broad madness had been left behind. So, in that broad madness, not one jot of his great natural intellect has perished. That, before living agent, now again became the living instrument. If such a furious trope may stand, His special lunacy stormed his general sanity and carried it and turned all its concentrated cannon upon his own mad mark, so that far from having lost his strength, Ahab, to that one end, did now possess 1,000-fold more potency than he had ever sanely brought to bear upon any one reasonable subject. This is much, yet Ahab's larger, darker, deeper part remains unhinted. But vain to popularize profundities, and all truth is profound, winding far down from within the very heart of his spiked hotel de Cluny where we here stand, however grand and wonderful. Now, quit it, and take your way, ye nobler, sadder souls, to these vast Roman halls of Thermes, where far beneath the fantastic towers of man's upper earth is root of grandeur. His whole awful essence sits in bearded state, an antique buried beneath antiquities, enthroned on torsos. So, with a broken throne, the great gods mock that captive king. So, like a caryatid, patient sits, upholding on his frozen brow the piled entablatures of ages. Wind ye down there, ye prouder, sadder souls. Question that proud, sad king. A family likeness. Aye, he did beget ye, ye young exiled royalties, and from your grim sire only will the old state secret come. Now, in his heart, Ahab had some glimpses of this. Namely, all my means are sane, my motive and my object mad. Yet, without the power to kill or change or shun the fact, he likewise knew that to mankind he did long dissemble in some sort, did still. But that thing of his dissembling was only subject to his perceptibility, not to his will determinate. Nevertheless, so well did he succeed in that dissembling, that when with ivory leg he stepped ashore at last, no Nantucketer thought him otherwise than but naturally grieved, and that to the quick, with the terrible casualty which had overtaken him. The report of his undeniable delirium at sea was likewise popularly ascribed to a kindred cause, and so, too, all the added moodiness which always afterwards, to the very day of sailing on the Pequod on the present voyage, sat brooding on his brow. Nor is it so very unlikely that, far from distrusting his fitness for another whaling voyage, on account of such dark symptoms, the calculating people of that prudent isle were inclined to harbor the conceit that, for these very reasons, he was all the better qualified and set on edge for a pursuit so full of rage and wildness as the bloody hunt of the whales. Gnawed within, scorched without, with the infixed, unrelenting fangs of some incurable idea, such as one could be found, would seem the very man to dart his iron and lift his lance against all brutes. Or, if for any reason thought to be corporeally incapacitated for that yet, such a one would seem relatively superlative absolutely competent to cheer and howl on his underlings. To the attack. But be all this as it may, certain it is that with the mad secret of his unabated rage bolted up and keyed in him, Ahab had purposefully sailed upon the present voyage with the one, only, and all-engrossing object of hunting the white whale. Had any one of his old acquaintances on shore but half dreamed of what was lurking in him then, how soon would their aghast and righteous souls have wrenched the ship from such a fiendish man? They were bent on profitable cruises, the profit to be counted down in dollars from the mint. He was intent on an audacious, unmitigable, and supernatural revenge. Here, then, was this gray-headed, ungodly old man, chasing with curses a Job's whale around the world, at the head of a crew, too, chiefly made up of mongrel renegades, castaways, and cannibals, morally enfeebled also by the incompetence of mere unaided virtue or right-mindedness in Starbuck, the invulnerable jollity of indifference and recklessness in Stubb, and the prevailing mediocrity in Flask. Such a crew, so officered, seems specifically picked and packed by some infernal fatality to help him to his monomaniacal revenge. How was it that they so aboundingly responded to the old man's ire? By what evil were their souls possessed, that at times his hate almost seemed theirs? The white whale, as much their insufferable foe as his. How all this came to be, what the white whale was to them, or how to their unconscious understandings also, in some dim, unsuspected way, he might have seemed the gliding great demon of the seas of life. All this to explain would be to dive deeper than Ishmael can go. The subterranean miner that works in us all, how can one tell whither leads his shaft by the ever-shifting muffled sound of his pick? Who does not feel the irresistible arm drag? What skiff in tow of a 74 can stand still? For one, I gave myself up to the abandonment of the time and the place, but while yet all a rush to encounter the whale, could see naught in the brute but the deadliest ill. And thus concludes chapter 41 of Moby Dick or the Whale. This chapter was entitled Moby Dick. So arguably this is the most Moby Dick chapter of Moby Dick we're going to read this whole time. What do y'all think? Any thoughts? Peak Moby Dick, writes Elodie. Elodie says, I think I see an animation of Ahab fighting the... I want to see an animation of Ahab fighting the whale. Oh, you want to see him running with a knife at the whale? I'm actually shocked. I don't think Evan Dom actually illustrated that in his Moby Dick Illustrated. Blue Cheesecake says, I didn't understand a single word, so seemed like Moby Dick to me. Yeah, let me check the archive for Moby Dick Illustrated, because I'm not sure. So there's illustrations of Ahab here. I'm not sure if there's illustrations of Ahab going after the whale with a knife. Flask and stub. Which chapter is this from? The quarter deck. Okay, so this is him giving a speech with the harpooneers behind him from 2 weeks ago. Let me see if I can find one after that. Evan Dom, once again, did these illustrations. He's one of my favorite living illustrators. And this is another shot from the same speech of the crossed lances with the crew and the officers looking on. This is the chart. I think that's chapter 43, so that's 2. Don't want that one. Am I out in the dark? Yeah, it's a bad place to stand. Sun has gotten setting. Ken Dreadful says, I think Ishmael wants the whale to win. I'm not sure about that. Elodie says the scary whale does sound pretty awesome. Mindstream says, I'm not caught up on the preceding chapters, but I'm personally here for the vibes, so understanding what's going on is optional. Thanks. Let's see. Sea Ravens. We're not on that chapter yet. Yeah, there's a lot of illustrations yet in here that we have not gotten to. But okay. Okay. Let's see. Ken Dreadful says, I'm rooting for the whale personally. So it's 9:40 now. This next chapter is also very long. And so since we're going to have in-studio guests next week, possibly, for the Moby Dick reading, I kind of don't want to start with a really long chapter. But maybe. I'm feeling pretty wiped out tonight, but like maybe that's just because that chapter was so long. Let's give it. Let's take some time. Let's take some time and chill, and then we'll see how we feel. Ken Dreadful. Oh, sorry. Elodie was rooting for the whale. Sorry, Ken Dreadful's rooting for the whale. Elodie says, "I love these illustrations." Yep, I'm glad. Yeah, Evan Dom is a brilliant illustrator. Oh, just as a reminder, I was going to say tips are welcome via paypal.me/Joe Hills and YouTube Super Chat. We are currently 20 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Let's get my hat on. I feel like my head is very reflective right now. All better. Okay. Okay. What was I going to do? I feel like I was going to go dig things. I did not. My sleep is way off recently, you guys. I am like. I feel like the last 2 days I've gotten a lot done. I've been remarkably productive. And so it's not like. It's just one of those things where it's like my body and my mind are both like get suppressed. So we're gonna give this a few minutes and see how I feel about reading one more chapter. Because I feel like opening the birthday Moby Dick stream with chapter 43 is a lot stronger. But I need a few minutes to regain, refocus my chi before proceeding. Okay. I feel like also we're kind of almost at the point where we need another beacon out here. And of course we don't have one. So that's kind of annoying. So part of me is like, oh, should I go get another beacon real quick? But I don't know if that's a good use of time either. This is almost broken. And our inventory is full anyway, though. Yeah, I had to wake up kind of early today. Because even though it's a weekend, a local columnist who I really respect and admire, Betsy Phillips, was doing an interview, or kind of a talk/interview with Leah Rotha Williams at the Tennessee State Museum this morning about her new book called Dynamite Nashville, which is about the Luby bombing and some of the historical problems we've had with bombings here in Nashville in the civil rights movement, and how crimes like that can go unsolved. It's kind of in some ways more of an investigation of the cover-up than the crime. So, yeah. I'm very curious. I've started reading it, and I really like it so far. Well, the book just came out, like, this week. It's not even on ebook yet, but let me find it. So it's not surprising you haven't heard of it. Third Man Books, Dynamite Nashville. Okay. So anyway, I woke up earlier than I would have otherwise, so I could attend that. And that was a really solid choice. I'm really glad I went. I got to speak with Betsy briefly. Betsy and I were originally supposed to meet up for a graveyard tour in March of 2020 when my now fiance Badger Spanner was visiting. But because of the COVID pandemic hitting right like that week, we canceled. But yeah, I just, so I been looking forward to meeting Betsy at some point, but it just never really happened. So this was the first time we got to speak, even though we'd like corresponded on Twitter and stuff in the past and via email. So that was fun. One thing that was fun too was Betsy at the there were about 120 people that showed up for the talk, and Betsy had a signing after and had a poster for everyone who attended the talk to sign, of like a poster of the cover of the book. So when you handed Betsy your copy of the book to get signed, you signed Betsy's poster for her to frame in her living room. So be like, look at all these people who came and see me talk about my first, book. Like, that's pretty cool. So I don't know. Maybe I should get a poster for bringing to signings. What do you guys think about that? Is that... So, like, if I go to PAX and I do a signing, I should buy a PAX poster or something and have the viewers who come see me at the PAX booth sign it or whatever. And I sign their stuff. I don't know. Just an idea. Elodie says, I'd sign a poster if I met you at a con. Yeah, I think it's kind of fun, and it gives both people something to do. Griffin says it'd be a cool memento. Yeah, that's the other thing, too. Like, I think it's a pretty good idea. Why am I getting tagged with 5 things over here? Okay. I am getting tagged a lot on Discord, but it does not look like any of it's urgent. It's about my thoughts on Gigi the Christmas Snake. So, just because someone I went to college with wants to know how I feel about Gigi the Christmas Snake does not mean that I need to take a break from this stream to go answer. I do need to verify that there's nothing actually on fire that I need to go deal with. But okay, it sounds like this is fine. This is a non-emergency request for thoughts on Gigi the Christmas Snake. Okay. Starting to get dark again. Okay, so I marked this because this definitely has to go once we can get the beacon. We just don't have the beacon for it yet. Elodie says, today I learned about Gigi the Christmas Snake. I can... Uh-oh, now that person is typing. If you're watching my stream, hi. I'll get back to you, don't worry. It's fine. Okay, So yeah, here's the Gigi the Christmas Snake video. I think, so my actual opinions of Gigi the Christmas Snake is that this is a cautionary tale of the role that people like me who make stuff on the internet can come to fill in families' lives, and it's terrifying. I think Gigi the Christmas Snake, it's a comedy, it's a holiday comedy video, but it's such a brilliant cautionary tale that it terrifies me. It's a very... It's not like a horror movie scary. It's just like, oh my god, this could really happen scary. It's like, oh, this is kind of funny. And it's like, well, it is until it's not. I still think that the jokes in it are objectively funny, but it's such an insightful video that it's deeply disturbing. Elodie says, well, now I want to watch it. Well, that's fine. I just linked it for your convenience. I'm not saying you can't go watch it right now. We're not doing anything like super high speed, low drag that you gotta catch. Okay, so where's that real cart go? Not very far. Okay. I'm wondering if there's... Oh, you know what? Actually, if I'm running around with explosive stuff. Oh, this is going to be fun. I don't know if you guys heard Etho last night. He was like, why hasn't anybody got any cool parkour courses on the server? Cub fan will provide. Yeah, everybody go watch Gigi the Christmas Snake. I promise I won't start reading Moby Dick again in less than 5 minutes. Like I said, I feel like I'm kind of done for the night, but like I feel bad. I don't want to open the next Saturday stream with this chapter. It's not a great chapter for a fun audience thing. Faid Freak says, Gigi the Christmas Snake feels like the Twilight Zone. Gigi the Christmas Snake. Slither slow so you won't wake. Okay. Hello there, ladies and gents. Are you ready to rock? Are you ready or not? Would you like to do a number with me? Would you like to do a number with me? Would you like to? Would you like to? Lost Cult Music tips 3 and says, cheers. Thank you very much, Lost Cult Music. That puts us 17 away from our next face camera expansion milestone. GG Christmas snake, slither so you won't. GG Christmas snake. Bum 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 bum. Have you checked behind the rake? Okay. Elodie, I see that you're back from watching Gigi the Christmas Snake. Mariachi says, that was horrifying. I loved it. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not funny. I'm saying it's pretty funny, but also, like, it reminds me of when I talk to parents who are like, oh, well, you know, we wouldn't normally go grocery shopping at Walmart, but our kid says that we have to buy Mr. Beast bars, and they're only available at Walmart. So, unfortunately, the produce and the meat quality has gone down in the house lately, and I'm like, what? Why? Why would you do that? Like, I just, like, I really, yeah, I feel like Gigi the Christmas Snake is like, yeah, it's just, it's like, it's vaguely parasocial, but also, like, really fixed in the zeitgeist. Neon Wyvern says there were definitely elements of horror there. Yeah, like, but you guys see what I'm saying? Like, how I look at that as, like, a cautionary tale, like, there, but for the grace of God go I, like, it's, I don't know, it scares me. Elodie says it just kept escalating, but escalating isn't quite the right word. Yeah, that's the thing, is escalating isn't quite the right word. There's a quote from one of the Christmas episodes of Community, where it's just like, the stakes have never been so low, and that only makes it more horrifying that he's willing to go this far. Right? Like, it's not like the stakes keep getting higher or the danger keeps increasing, but just like how far things have gotten out of hand just becomes increasingly apparent. It's not escalating in the sense that new action is occurring. It's revelatory escalation, let's say. By which I mean using the source word reveal, revelatory. Over time, we learn more and more and understand the situation better. It reminds me of a cosmic horror novel in that way, where it's like, huh, this thing seems pretty bad. But then the more you try to understand it, the more you realize you don't want to understand it, and the worse it actually is revealed to be. Does that make sense? Noakon says, it's like a horizontal escalator in an airport. Doesn't go up, just keeps moving forward and doesn't stop. Yeah, we call those a people mover. I would argue that this YouTube video moves people. I think people mover is a good way to describe that. Thank you, Noakon. Oh boy. But yeah, it's such a weird video. Dun 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 dun. Mariach says, I want to make more comments about it, but it's so utterly absurd I have no words. I mean, yeah. It's not good. It's, like I said, it feels like the modern equivalent of a Rockwell portrait. of an entertainer's relationship with a family, except twisted. Jose was ranked last year. Wink. Da, da, da. It's a very well acted video. I am not in any way trying to criticize, to be clear. I'm not trying to criticize the writing or acting. I think it's a hilarious, well executed vision, but that vision is a Lovecraftian horror. I'm just gonna go get the iron. Let's just go get the iron and build the other beacon, because this is getting stupid. Gee, the Christmas snake slithers slow so you won't wake. Gee, the Christmas snake. Best be good for goodness sake. It's gonna be alright with Gigi. Mossy Fawn says, what the heck did I just watch? Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But like, here's the thing though, is could you guys see though how like somebody trying to explain my YouTube channel and my streams to some random guy that they kind of know and run into at the mall would be basically that conversation. Like, can you understand that? Like, do you see why I see a very local truth in this? Like, when I've seen people, like, when I've seen children try to explain HermitCraft to people, or things like that, like, at conventions and stuff, this is... It's not exactly how it goes, but, like... There's something there, is my point. Everything's alright. Oh boy. How does this building look from back here by Ren's fence? While we're over here. Oh, there's trees blocking it. That's good enough. Welcome, Yano. Oh, also I put some little air conditioning vents and stuff up on top of here. Ken Dreadful says, this is how I hear when I learn about memes and influencers now that I'm old. And Elodie says, yeah, I tried to explain your show before, and it did devolve into kind of a Gigi the Puppet Hills thing. Which is a sentence that doesn't make sense outside of this exact moment. Neon Wyvern says, but it's a good sentence. Okay. Medical Dr. Charlie Elite says, why has no one mentioned setting up stream now overlay is still showing? Oh, well, because we take our time here. We're still setting up the stream. I was just going to get the beacon blocks that we can't set up the stream until we get these blocks of iron in place for our final beacon. So I figure, like, down here looks like it's... This is probably fine. This might not be exactly 50 blocks away, but at a certain point, we just need to cut our losses on and pursue activity, rather than just be continuously not done. Ken Dreadful says, I've actually run into this specific problem while trying to explain the Juppet. Okay. Welcome, Yuri Eclipse. Glad you could join us. Okay, so now we need to go get a beacon. Woo! Where is the furthest beacon from here that's not being actively used? I don't think we have one out this way. Oh, let's go grab that one, actually. That one's not active. Okay. Ow, my body. Ow, ow, my body. Yeah, we need other beacons over here. It's a shame there's not like a pit like that other one over here. Although we do have that. But it's fine. Okay. I mean, the thing with Gigi the Christmas Snake is Gigi is clearly kind of exploitative. Gigi insisting that children rip the windshield wipers off their parents' cars. Right? Is like, just like, that, and forcing the dad to change his name to Cherry Pie. Oh. That was not ideal. Okay, so the question is, how far does this stretch? Does this stretch far enough that we can actually remove this whole bit here that's been plaguing me? Hopefully it is the case. Probably should have put a bed at that new beacon. Didn't think of it. push on through. Well, and this is something too that like, yeah. So Gigi being very parasitical. Yeah, it's creepy how much the family loves Gigi. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on there. Like, it's a parasocial, parasitical relationship, and it's deeply unhealthy. But like I said, like there's similar things with some influencers and whatnot where. Like I said, the guys who start selling kids energy drinks and chocolate bars worry me. Evening, NJ. Welcome to my show. I'm Joe Hills. I'm broadcasting live from Nashville, Tennessee. Hope you and Manatee Gag had a fun time for MG's birthday yesterday. We were just talking about Gigi the Christmas snake. You had people over for 10 hours of gaming. Nice. That's fun. Finally got to play finally got to play Clank Catacombs. Awesome. Gus CR2 says, "Hey Joe, I watch HermitCraft, but I've never seen a stream from you." Oh, well that's okay, because my streams are pretty weird. You probably don't want to, because you know, we got so much grinding here to do that I'm probably just gonna get bored and start, you know, like reading chapter 42 from Moby Dick. What the white whale was to Ahab has been hinted. What at times he was to me as yet remains unsaid. Aside from those more obvious considerations touching Moby Dick, which could not but occasionally awaken in any man's soul some alarm, there was another thought, or rather vague, nameless horror concerning him, which at times, by its intensity, completely overpowered all the rest, and yet so mystical and well-nigh ineffable was it that I almost despair of putting it in a comprehensible form. It was the whiteness of the whale that above all things appalled me. But how can I hope to explain myself here, and yet, in some dim, random way, explain myself I must, else all these chapters might be naught. Though in many natural objects, whiteness refiningly enhances beauty, as if imparting some special virtue of its own, as in marbles, japonicas, and pearls. And though various nations have in some way recognized a certain royal preeminence in this hue, even the barbaric grand old kings of Pegu, placing the title Lord of the White Elephants above all other magniloquent ascriptions of dominion, and the modern kings of Siam unfurling the same snow-white quadruped in the royal standard, and the Hanoverian flag bearing the one figure of a snow-white charger, and the great Austrian Empire, Caesarian, heir to overlording Rome, having for the imperial color the same imperial hue. And though besides all this, whiteness has been even made significant of gladness,
For among the Romans a white stone marked a joyful day, and though in other mortal sympathies and symbolizings this same hue is made emblem of the many touching noble things, the innocence of brides, the benignity of age, and though among the red men of America, the giving of the white belt of wampum was the deepest pledge of honor, though in many climes whiteness typifies the majesty of justice in the ermine of the judge, and contributes to the daily state of kings and queens drawn by milk-white steeds, though even in the higher mysteries of the most august religions it has been made the symbol of the divine spotlessness and power. By the Persian fire worshippers, the white forked flame being held the holiest on the altar. And in the Greek mythologies, great Jove himself being made incarnate in a snow-white bull. And to the noble Iroquois, the midwinter sacrifice of the sacred white dog was by far the holiest festival of tidings of their theology. That spotless, faithful creature being held the purest envoy they could send to the Great Spirit with the annual tidings of their own fidelity. And though directly from the Latin word for white, all Christian priests derived the use of one of their most sacred one part of their sacred vesture, the alb or tunic, wore beneath the cassock. And though among the holy pomps of the Romish faith, white is specially employed in the celebration of the Passion of our Lord, though in the vision of St. John's, white robes are given to the redeemed and the 24 elders stand clothed in white before the great white throne, and the Holy One that sitteth there white like wool. Yet for all these accumulated associations, with whatever is sweet and honorable and sublime, there yet lurks an elusive something in the innermost idea of this hue, which strikes more panic to the soul than that redness which affrights in blood. This elusive quality it is which causes the thought of whiteness, when divorced from the more kindly associations, and coupled with any object terrible in itself, to heighten that terror to its furthest bounds. Witness the white bear of the poles and the white shark of the tropic. What but their flaky whiteness makes them the transcendent horrors they are? That ghastly whiteness it is which imparts such an abhorrent malice, even more loathsome than terrific, to the dumb gloating of their aspect, so that not the fierce-fanged tiger in his heraldic coat can stagger courage as the white-shrouded bear or shark. With reference to the polar bear, it may possibly be urged by him who would fain go still deeper into this matter that it is not the whiteness, separately regarded, which heightens the hideousness of that brute, for, analyzed, that stands invested in the fleece of celestial innocence and love, and hence, by bringing together two such opposite emotions in our mind, the polar bear frightens us with so unnatural a contrast. But, even assuming all this to be true, yet were it not for the whiteness, you would not have that intensified terror. As for the white shark, the white gliding ghostliness of repose in that creature, when beheld in ordinary moods, strangely tallies with the same quality in the polar quadruped. This peculiarity is most vividly hit by the French in the name they bestow on the fish. The Romish Mass for the dead begins with Requiem Aeternam, eternal rest, whence Requiem denominating the Mass itself,
and any other funeral music. Now, in allusion to the white, silent stillness of death in this shark, and the mild deadliness of his habits, the French call him Requin. Bethink thee of the albatross. Whence come those clouds of spiritual wonderment and pale dread, in which that white phantom sails in all imaginations? Not Coleridge first threw that spell, but God's great unflattering laureate, nature. I remember the first albatross I ever saw. It was during a prolonged gale, in waters hard upon the Antarctic seas. From my forenoon watch below, I ascended to the overclouded deck, and there, dashed upon the main hatches, I saw a regal, feathery thing of unspotted whiteness, and with a hooked Roman bill, sublime. At intervals, it arched forth its vast archangel wings as if to embrace some holy ark. Wondrous flutterings and throbbings shook it. Though bodily unharmed, it uttered cries as some king's ghost in supernatural distress. Through its inexpressible, strange eyes, methought I peeped to secrets which took hold of God, as Abraham before the angels. I bowed myself. The white thing was so white. Its wings so wide. And in those forever exiled waters, I had lost the miserable warping memories of traditions and of towns. Long I gazed at that prodigy of plumage. I cannot tell, can only hint the things that darted through me then. But at last I awoke, and turning, asked a sailor, what bird was this? A goney, he replied. Goney. I had never heard that name before. Is it conceivable that this glorious thing is utterly unknown to men ashore? But some time after, I learned the goney was some seaman's name for albatross, so that by no possibility could Coleridge's wild rhyme have had aught to do with those mystical impressions, which were mine, when I saw that bird upon our deck. For neither had I then read the rhyme, nor knew the bird to be an albatross. Yet, in saying this, I do but indirectly burnish a little brighter the noble merit of the poem and the poet. I assert, then, that in the wondrous bodily whiteness of the bird chiefly lurks the secret of the spell, a truth the more evinced in this, that by a solecism of terms, there are birds called gray albatrosses, and these I have frequently seen, but never had such emotions as I had when I saw the Antarctic fowl. But how had the mystic thing been caught? Whisper it not, and I will tell. With a treacherous hook and line, as the fowl floated on the sea. At last the captain made a postman of it, tying a leathern tally around its neck, with the ship's time and place, and letting it escape. But I doubt not that leathern tally, meant for man, was taken off in heaven, when the white fowl flew to join the wing-folding, the invoking, and adoring cherubim. Most famous in our Western annals and Indian traditions is that of the white steed of the prairies, a magnificent milk-white charger, large-eyed, small-headed, bluff-chested, and with the dignity of 1,000 monarchs in his lofty, ever-scorning carriage. He was the elected Xerxes of vast herds of wild horses, whose pastures in those days were only fenced by the Rocky Mountains and the Alleghanies. At their flaming head he westward trooped it, like that chosen star which every evening leads on the hosts of light. The flashing cascade of his mane, the curving comet of his tail, invested him with housings more resplendent than gold, than silver beaters could have furnished him. A most imperial and archangelical apparition of that unfallen western world, which to the eyes of the old trappers and hunters revived the glories of the primeval times, when Adam walked as majestic as a god, bluff-burrowed and fearless as this mighty steed. Whether marching amid his aides and marshals, in the van of countless cohorts that endlessly streamed it over the plains, like an Ohio, or whether with his circumambient subjects browsing all around at the horizon, the white steed gallopingly reviewed them with warm nostrils reddening through his cool milkiness, in whatever aspect he presented himself. Always to the bravest natives, he was the object of trembling reverence and awe. Nor can it be questioned from what stands on legendary record of this noble horse, that it was his spiritual whiteness, chiefly, which so clothed him with divineness, that his divineness had that in it which, though commanding worship, at the same time enforced a certain nameless terror. But there are other instances where whiteness loses all that accessory and strange glory which it invests in the white steed and albatross. Yeah, this next paragraph is kind of mean to albino people. I'm not gonna read that one. You guys can read that yourself. I do not really read ahead in this book. I've read this book once a decade ago, roughly. But yeah, this is not very kind to albino people. So I think we're gonna skip that while we go repair our tools here. Nor, in quite other aspects, does nature in her least palpable but not the less malicious agencies fail to enlist among her forces this crowning attribute of the terrible. From its snowy aspect, the gauntleted ghost of the southern seas has been denominated the White Squall. Nor, in some historic instances, has the art of human malice omitted so potent an auxiliary. How wildly it heightens the effect of that passage in Frustrate, when massed in the snowy symbol of their faction, the desperate White Hoods of Ghent murder the bailiff in the marketplace. Nor in some things does the common hereditary experience of all mankind fail to bear witness to the supernaturalism of this hue. It cannot be well doubted that the one visible quality in the aspect of the dead which most appalls the gazer is the marble pallor lingering there, as if indeed that pallor were as much like the badge of consternation in the other world as of moral trepidation here. And from the pallor of the dead We borrow the expressive hue of the shroud. We can't fix our tools here because Asuma's broke the thing. 1 second. I gotta go to the... Oh, but if we do the Bopham thing, it's gonna ruin our... We're gonna have to go to Corralis's. Sorry, guys. While I'm distracted easily anyway, I should remind folks that this is a viewer-supported stream. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. I try not to break in the middle of chapters, but this is a very long chapter. You can probably see why I didn't want to open my birthday stream with this next week when we have in-studio guests, one of whom I've known for 25 years, and who is bringing a date who has never met me. So I'm sure she cannot wait to be read Moby Dick at in my garage without air conditioning on a Saturday night. Yeah, this is we might see some we might yeah. Let's go to Papa Case. What a first impression. I know, right? I mean, I'm gonna suggest, why don't you go upstairs and hang out with Badger? But we'll see. We'll see. We need to go to the spider farm. Take me down to the spider farm city. La da 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 da. Please, please, spider farm. Dun 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 dun. Okay. So we're gonna turn the hostile creature sounds off. Trial by whale. I know, right? Okay. Okay. Let's try. Let's try continuing this chapter now that we're waiting for the spiders. We'll eat a potato. I'm glad Badger and I get to be together for our birthdays, too. Badger's birthday is only a few days after mine. Lenari says, happy early birthday to you both. Thank you. Yay, we're getting some extra glowing, too. Okay. Oh, yeah, we gotta actually put these... I mean, it's fixing our elytra, so it's not like we wasted that experience, but yeah. We're gonna eat another potato. Thanks, Scar. Sleepy Scar. Okay. Okay. So... Not even in our superstitions do we fail to throw the same snowy mantle round our phantoms. All ghosts rising up in a milk-white fog. Yeah, while those terrors seize us, let us add that even the king of terrors, when personified by the evangelist, rides on his pallid horse. Therefore, in his other moods, symbolize whatever grand or gracious thing he will be by whiteness. No man can deny that in its profoundest idealized significance, it calls up a peculiar apparition to the soul. But, though without dissent this point can be fixed, how is mortal man to account for it? To analyze it would seem impossible. Can we then, by some citation of some of those instances, wherein this thing of whiteness, though for the time, either wholly or in part stripped of all direct associations calculated to impart to it aught fearful, but nevertheless is found to exert o'er us the same sorcery, our modified. Can we thus hope to light upon some chance clue to conduct us to the hidden cause we seek? But let us try. But in a manner like this, subtlety appears to subtlety, and without imagination no man can follow another into these halls. And though doubtless some at least of the imaginative impressions about to be presented may have been shared by most men, yet few perhaps were entirely conscious of them at the time, and therefore may not be able to recall them now. Why, to the man of untutored ideality, who happens to be but loosely acquainted with this peculiar character of the day, does the bare mention of Whitsuntide marshal in the fancy such long, dreary, speechless processions of slow-pacing pilgrims, downcast and hooded with a new-fallen snow? Or to the unread, unsophisticated Protestant of the Middle American states, why does a passing mention of a white friar or a white nun evoke such an eyeless statue in the soul? Wow. Okay. Boy. You know, I feel like it's really notable that Herman Melville thinks that people who can't read are pretty stupid. And I mean, they're not his target audience here. The unread, unsophisticated Protestant of the Middle American states is what he just called some people. Like, I'm, wow, okay. Okay. I mean, they guess, yeah, he's figured they weren't going to read. It's like, they're not going to say anything. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. That's something, huh? Oh, boy. Or what is there apart from the traditions of dungeoned warriors and kings, which will not wholly account for it, that makes the White Tower of London tell so much more strongly on the imagination of an untraveled American than those other storied structures, its neighbors, the Byward Tower, or even the Bloody, and those sublimer towers, the White Mountains of New Hampshire, whence, in peculiar moods, comes that gigantic ghostliness over the soul at the bare mention of that name, while the thought of Virginia's Blue Ridge is full of soft, dewy, distant dreaminess. Or why, irrespective of all latitudes and longitudes, does the name of the White Sea exert such a spectralness over fancy, while that of the Yellow Sea lulls us with mortal thoughts of long lacquered mild afternoons on the waves, followed by the gaudiest and yet sleepiest of sunsets? Or, to choose a wholly unsubstantial instance, purely addressed to the fancy, why, in the reading of the old fairy tales of Central Europe, does the tall pale man of the Hartz forests, whose changeless pallor unrustlingly glides through the green of the groves, why is this phantom more terrible than all the whooping imps of the Blocksberg? Nor is it altogether the remembrance of her cathedral-toppling earthquakes, nor the stampedos of her frantic seas, nor the carelessness of arid skies that never rain, nor the sight of her wide field of leaning spires, wretched copestones, and crosses all adroop, like canted yards of anchored fleets, and her suburban avenues of house walls. Oh, I'm using the wrong sword. Dang it. And her suburban avenues of house walls lying over upon each other as a tossed pack of cards. It is not these things alone which makes tearless Lima the strangest, saddest city thou canst see. For Lima has taken the white veil, and there's a higher horror in this whiteness of her woe. Old as Pizarro, this whiteness keeps her ruin forever new, admits not the cheerful greenness of complete decay, spreads over her broken ramparts the rigid pallor of an apoplexy that fixes its own distortions. I know that to the common apprehension, this phenomena of whiteness is not confessed to be the prime agent in exaggerating the terror of objects otherwise terrible. Nor to the unimaginative mind is there aught of terror in those appearances whose awfulness to another mind almost solely consists in this one phenomena, especially when exhibited under any form at all approaching to muteness or universality. What I mean by these two statements may perhaps be respectively elucidated by the following examples. First, the mariner, when drawing nigh the coasts of foreign lands, if by night he hear the roar of breakers, starts to vigilance, and feels just enough trepidation to sharpen all his faculties, but under precisely similar circumstances, let him be called from his hammock to view his ship sailing through a midnight sea of milky whiteness, as if from encircling headland shoals of combed white bears were swimming round him. Then he feels a silent, surreptitious dread. Superstitious dread. The shrouded phantom of the whitened waters is horrible to him as a real ghost. In vain the lead assures him he is still off soundings. Heart and helm they both go down. He never rests till blue water is under him again. Yet where is the mariner who will tell thee, Sir, it was not so much the fear of striking hidden rocks as the fear of that hideous whiteness that so stirred me. Second, to the native of Peru, the continual sight of the snow-hooded Andes conveys naught of dread, except perhaps in the mere fancying of the eternal frosted desolateness reigning at such vast altitudes, and the natural conceit of what a fearfulness it would be to lose oneself in such inhuman solitudes. Much the same it was with the backwoodsman of the West, who, with comparative indifference, views an unbounded prairie, sheeted with driven snow, no shadow of tree or twig to break the fixed trance of whiteness. Not so the sailor, beholding the scenery of the Antarctic seas, where at times, by some infernal trick of legendman in the powers of frost and air, he, shivering and half shipwrecked, instead of rainbows speaking hope and solace to his misery, views what seems a boundless churchyard, grinning upon him with its lean ice monuments and splintered crosses. But thou sayest, methinks that white lead chapter about whiteness is but a white flag hung out from a craven soul. Thou surrenderest to a hypo-Ishmael. Tell me why this strong young colt, foaled in some peaceful valley of Vermont, far removed from all beasts of prey, why is it that upon the sunniest day, if you but shake a fresh buffalo robe behind him, so that he cannot see it, but only smells its wild animal muskiness, why will he start, snort, and with bursting eyes paw the ground in frenzies of affright? There is no remembrance in him of any gorings of wild creatures in his green northern home, so that the strange muskiness he smells cannot recall to him anything he associated with the experience of former perils. For what knows he, this New England colt, of the black bisons of distant Oregon? No, but here thou beholdest, even in a dumb brute, the instinct of the knowledge of demonism in the world. Though thousands of miles from Oregon, still when he smells that savage musk, the rending, goring bison herds are as present as to the deserted wild foal of the prairies, which this instant they may be trampling into dust. Thus, then, the muffled rollings of a milky sea, the bleak rustlings of the festooned frosts of the mountains, the desolate shiftings of the windowed snows of prairies, all these to Ishmael are as the shaking of that buffalo robe to the frightened colt. Though neither knows where lie the nameless things of which the mystic sign gives forth such hints, yet with me, as with the colt, somewhere those things must exist. Though in many of its aspects the visible world seems formed in love, the invisible spheres were formed in fright. But not yet have we solved the incantation of this whiteness, and learned why it appeals with such power to the soul, and more strange and far more portentous, why, as we have seen, is it at once the most meaning symbol of spiritual things, nay, the very veil of the Christian's deity, and yet should be, as it is, the intensifying agent in the things most appalling to mankind? It is by its indefiniteness it shadows forth the heartless voids and immensities of the universe, and thus stabs us from behind with the thought of annihilation when beholding the white depths of the Milky Way. Or is it that, as in essence, whiteness is not so much a color as the visible absence of color, and at the same time the concrete of all colors? It is for these reasons that there is such a dumb blankness, full of meaning, in a wide landscape of snows, a colorless all-color of atheism from which we shrink. And when we consider that other theory of the natural philosophers, that all other earthly hues, every stately or lovely emblazoning, the sweet tinges of sunset skies and woods, yea, and the gilded velvets of butterflies, and the butterfly cheeks of young girls, all these are but subtle deceits, subtile, not even subtle, subtile deceits, underneath the tiles. Imagine you're playing dominoes, I guess. I don't know. Not actually inherent in substances, but only laid on from without, so that all deified nature absolutely paints like the harlot, whose allurements cover nothing but the charnel house within. And when we proceed further, and consider that the mystical cosmetic, which produces every one of her hues, the great principle of light, forever remains white, or colorless in itself, and, if operating without medium upon matter, could touch all objects, even tulips and roses, with its own blank tinge. Pondering all this, the palsied universe lies before us a leper, and like a wilful travelers in Lapland, who refuse to wear colored and coloring glasses upon their eyes, so the wretched infidel gazes himself blind at the monumental white shroud that wraps all around him. And all of these things, the albino whale was the symbol. Wonder ye, then, at the fiery hunt? And that concludes chapter 43 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Okay, so, yeah. Last call for tips. Let's talk about this chapter real quick. Okay, so this is arguably him, like, doing high schoolers' jobs for them. If you had to read this book and your teacher was like, hey, class, what do you think is the symbolism of the color white? Why is Moby Dick specifically a white whale? You could just turn in this chapter. Like, Herman Melville is like, you know, I get really excited about whales and also literary criticism. So let me quickly just do some literary criticism of my own choices in this novel. Like, right? This is like for those of you who are programmers, this is like a really long commit message explaining why a change was made. And it's like, okay, I know people are going to complain to me about this change, but let me just make this clear. Here's 80 reasons why I'm doing this, and if you roll it back, then I mean, you're ignoring a lot of good justifications. Da, 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 da. Mm-hmm. Imagine if every book explained itself. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the sort of thing that, like, in Star Trek, there'd be somebody from like Boolean literature. Like, every story is like this. And they're just like, wow, Herman Melville is the only human who, like, really gets us, right? Because, like, that's one thing I like seeing in Star Trek is, like, explorations of different cultures' art. One of my favorite concepts in Star Trek art is the idea that the Cardassians have a genre of book that's kind of the equivalent of the American mystery novel. Except the difference is, in an American mystery novel, you're trying to figure out which of the characters is guilty. In a Cardassian Enigma tale, every character is guilty, and the reader is trying to figure out who's guilty of what. And that sounds like a subtle distinction, but it's not, right? Like that's such an interesting idea for a genre of literature that is sufficiently alien to feel like it's from another species, but close enough to our own to feel understandable and approachable. Lone Courier says, from where I jumped in on it, it seems like the color white means unknown and unknowable, so it's scary. I mean, you can go back. This chapter is like, we've been reading this for a long time. This is one of the longest chapters in the book, and it's just him listing historical examples of why the color white was revered or why significance is given to it. Araya Thallium says, didn't the Clue movie do that? That's arguably, you're correct. There's 3 different endings, and one of the endings does end up resulting in it being a Cardassian Enigma tale. That's a great point. Araya Thallium, we do have one of those. Beck DeHam says, I remember the Clue movie. Darwin says, Shaka when the walls fell. There's, the book Constellation Games. No, not Constellation Games. Situation Normal by Leonard Richardson has a really good equivalent of that. Of people talking in terms of stuff kind of like the way the people from the episode Darmok talk. And so in Constellation games, some of the characters are in a prison and they're trying to plan an escape, and they're like being observed by an AI that if they said, okay, we need to have one person, modify the air vent so that we can throw this through it, and we need another person to distract the guard, and we need another person to do this, the AI monitor would report that to the guards, right? And so they have to talk about episodes of TV shows they saw where different characters did certain things. Like there's an episode where somebody puts something in an air vent, or there's an episode where somebody goes and distracts a policeman or whatever, right? And so but like they don't all have perfect memories of the episodes, and so they're like, wait, do you mean the one where so and so does this? Or it's like, no, that was season 3. If season 4 you remember blah blah blah. And it's so it's actually kind of a interesting, dramatic scene, because the characters don't have a lot of time to figure out a plan, and they all need to speak in a language that their captors won't understand. And so it's kind of a commentary, too, on the value of shared media and shared experiences in that way. But anyway, we got... okay, we did last call for tips already. It's 11 o'clock here. I think I need to wrap up for the night, so we're going to go ahead and see what we wanted to send people over to. Let's see. Wow, is there nobody streaming pinball right now? That can't be right. Okay. I'm just not following this channel, I guess. So we're going to go ahead. I don't know these guys, but they are apparently streaming a pinball tournament. I'm not sure what machine that is. Is that Turtles? Yeah, they're streaming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right now. So we're going to /raid Batcave Pinball. When you get over there, our raid message is, howdy y'all, Joe Hills raid here. Anyway, until next time, y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee. Keep adventuring. Stop streaming, stopping the stream. Click and stop stream, 'cause